So, kind of with Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, coming back to WWE, it kind of begs the question now whether or not everyone else on the roster is really an independent contractor. You know, as someone like Matt Cardona has the liberties to kind of have all these indie dates and now appear, it seems, with WWE on random kind of one-off dates and not have to sign a formal contract. That we're kind of getting back to similar days like in NXT, where we had people like Jushin Thunder Liger kind of come over and kind of do one-off appearances, which kind of speaks to a bigger dialogue now happening within wrestling, I think, and a big opportunity for a lot of the greater world of wrestling and those stories and people to get a spotlight within WWE to enhance their stories kind of moving forward. It's a big thing just because to openly kind of have Zack Ryder and in this tournament, I think opens the doors for initially what Cena said for the last My Time Is Now tournament, that anyone working anywhere can get an opportunity, and that this is a celebration of the greater world of wrestling. And I think also as well, kind of with this happening, you know, you have you had that situation with Andrade where he did show up on AEW right after his WWE contract, which apparently was a violation of his no compete clause. But now kind of with someone like Zack Ryder kind of doing what he did and going through the channels, it seems correctly to get something like this to happen. It does seem like stuff like the Andrade situation will be something of the past now that wrestling itself seems to be a lot more connected. Triple H is someone who does pay attention, I think, to the world of wrestling in terms of what the fandom does talk about and the conversation. You know, he might not be booking with that keen eye week to week and kind of doing what he wants, right? But at the same time, he does have an eye for what the fans are saying, and I think that's super reflective in how Cena's second kind of core with the face turn has been booked, you know, kind of listening to what the fan suggestions are and kind of booking out many fantasy scenarios that we have talked about, you know, even on this channel before. LA Knight kind of getting the win over Zack Ryder. I don't think this is going to be the last we see of Zack Ryder, and I also think that this will now mean that many other wrestlers that if favorable with WWE and keep kind of good open ties maybe that are on the indies, we can possibly see more kind of clashes of that happening. I would actually think that, you know, for the women's wrestling, I think it would be great if a lot of maybe Joshi talent were able to kind of mix it up with people in WWE currently that might have ties to them, you know, just kind of like how Io went over to fight Mayu Iwatani kind of over there. You know, I think a lot of like those types of women would like do great right now under the WWE brand and roster if given ample time, and maybe just like some sort of, you know, maybe even gang war type of thing to happen between like a Stardom and WWE's women's division, or maybe Stardom and NXT's women's division can have like a proper collab that I think would headline its own show, you know. But just, I think with the Zack Ryder thing, unfortunately he didn't win, but I don't think anyone really saw LA Knight taking an L to a Zack Ryder right now, especially if this is a one-off, you know what I mean, and it's more of like just a surprise pop to get the crowd to remember kind of the feud, more the happenings between Cena, Ryder, and I guess like Eve Torres back in the day. And kind of now also with that, you kind of have the Tommy Invincible thing kind of picking up more steam, because in the Dominic promo that happened on last week's Raw, you know, he did mention that he was Invincible Cena. So that got Tommy Invincible on social media to start kind of rallying that campaign, and a lot of other people kind of around him started kind of championing for that. So we could possibly see maybe a surprise Tommy Invincible entrance, but I do not think they're going to do that yet, just because I do think, unfortunately, with someone like Tommy Invincible, there needs to be more of an actual character and gimmick and brand to him that's not necessarily like struggling wrestler going to make it. You know, I think he's extremely inspiring. He's doing his good work. He's doing the best he can with what he has and everything. But I do think it's going to be more about having an actual story than the story itself being making it as a wrestler. So I don't think we'll see him most likely in the Last Time Is Now tournament, in terms of fighting Cena. Maybe down the line with something with another kind of surprise appearance, he can maybe enter another random open challenge for like a Dragunov or something like that to give him a taste of the WWE light, get people to know his name, so that when he comes back in the Indies, he now has a bunch of stuff loaded that can propel him to that next level in the Indies, to then really move up in that echelon and become the wrestler that Tommy Invincible really probably wants to be. Any other prospects I'm thinking about kind of besides that that might be tied to Cena? I'm thinking like Edge, honestly, from AEW, right? Or Adam Copeland. Obviously the fabled collaboration between AEW and WWE, is kind of right now that forbidden door. I think everywhere else kind of likes to play ball and is willing to, but it just seems like the two big American companies in AEW and WWE definitely don't want to play ball. It could be some people on each side just kind of holding that fence down, really not wanting to break it, because who knows what happens in terms of which side gets cannibalized. Probably AEW getting cannibalized, which is why personally I kind of get why they don't collab directly with WWE, because I think AEW is the only place that would have everything to lose in that, bringing its superstars over and not getting anything back from WWE on that, or Chris Jericho as well, even though there are rumors of him coming back to WWE, so that could make a lot more sense if we see Chris Jericho kind of as a surprise entrance, and maybe he possibly wins the whole thing to have a Jericho Cena kind of final, which I don't think would happen, but it would be an interesting surprise to see Jericho kind of pop up for the tournament. This is a Hail Mary, me saying this. Tanahashi. Like, I know this is like maybe a couple years too late, right? But I think the New Japan face, and the WWE face that faded John Cena Tanahashi match, man. I know it wouldn't be the greatest, but to just say that we had it, dude, oh my god. Just to see those two in the ring, maybe we have the match in Japan so the Japanese crowd really appreciates Tanahashi. We'd have to have it in a New Japan friendly state, for that to work, so that we can really get the hype of that match, a big pro wrestling crowd. But I can really see like Tanahashi just coming out of nowhere, you know what I mean, as a New Japan fan, just hearing "Go Ace," after like R-Truth in the ring saying he's ready to fight Cena, you just get Tanahashi out of nowhere or something. That would be crazy. Yeah, the Zack Ryder thing gets me kind of hyped because amidst the lackadaisical shows, the Time Is Now tournament having this type of proposition makes me look forward to tuning in every week to see who possibly will be trying to grab that brass ring, right, and face Cena. So let me know what you guys kind of think of the crossover of Zack Ryder joining WWE for a little bit, coming back for a one-off appearance, what that can mean for independent contractors going forward, and what that means for the greater world of wrestling. Let me know.